Hello guys, welcome back to the video. It is Stratus Forecast Weather here. In today's video, we're going to be going over the potential for a blizzard on up in the upper Midwest, a severe weather outbreak in portions of the central part of the country, and as well as a high wind event and rainstorm for portions of the East Coast as well. Before we do get into today's video, please do remember to like and subscribe. We are trying to reach 100 subscribers on this channel, and appreciate it a lot. But without further ado, let's get ready to do this. Alright. Alright, so right now there's a lot going on the map, I know. So we just had a severe weather outbreak in portions of the Midwest as well as portions of the Deep South. Unfortunately, I was not able to cover those. We have a lot of things going on across portions of the Northeast as well. We have a little clipper system that's moving through the portions of the Great Lakes region. This will continue to kind of move its way to the north and east, bring some moderate snow to portions of Maine, portions of the upper portions of New York as well, as they are under a winter storm warning. This is going to be a generalized 3 to 6 inch deal. There could be some localized higher amounts, but that's pretty much what we're dealing with. And behind the system, expect gusty winds out of the northwest. It's going to be a gusty day. Not tomorrow, but tomorrow night. Then we're going to watch as the system develops over here. Is going to take a turn kind of like this and kind of just race off to the north and east and then kind of move this kind of direction. It's going to bring a large area of severe weather in portions of the central United States, which will include widespread damaging winds, isolated strong tornadoes, as well as isolated large hail. This system will eventually track its way to the northeast as it will bring a severe weather event to portions of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast as well as the southeast, with damaging winds being the primary threat. And then it's going to bring a heavy rainstorm and potentially high winds to the northeast. So going over the models real quick. So right now, again, we have that clipper system going through portions of the Great Lakes. This will eventually make its way to the New England area with a quick batch of heavy snow that'll be out of here by Saturday night. And then before we get to the next system, I just want to take a look at the snowfall accumulation for that area. In general, it's going to be a localized 3 to 6 inches, as you can see in most spots. It's going to be right around that 4-inch mark. And then we have to talk about the big thing. So, we're going to see a system kind of develop, kind of in the Rockies, and kind of take a turn, and we're going to have to watch this corridor from about Illinois all the way down to portions of Arkansas, potentially even Louisiana, for almost like a derecho event to occur. You'll see this damaging wind line really ramp up during the very early morning hours on very late hours on Sunday. This system will then, again, as I said, track off to the north rapidly. It's going to have gusty winds ahead of it with batches of heavy rain and potential thunderstorms as well. And then the original alignment will come through with some high winds. The winds will be gusty, potentially between 45 to probably 55 miles per hour is what I'm thinking right now. And there's the potential for higher gusts, closer to between 55 and 65 miles per hour. I do not think we're talking about 70 mile per hour wind gusts, so that is a good thing, but there still will likely be power outages. And the one thing about this event is we're likely to see multiple rounds of gusty winds. It's likely to be several, if not very frequent, gusts of 45 plus miles per hour, and there will be gusts between 55 and 65 miles per hour, I do believe. As this system goes through, it's going to drop a ton of rain as well, but I really want to focus on the blizzard and the severe weather aspect of it first before we get into any of those details. So the windstorm, it's going to very rapidly strengthen, and therefore the snow bands are going to get heavier for the Great Lakes region. And then you can see this bowing segment here. This is what you would call a straight line wind event, but in this case, if it goes far enough, the criteria for a derecho is at least 58 mile per hour wind gusts for at least 200 extended miles, 200 plus miles or more to be a derecho. And I do believe this could reach that criteria as it crosses through central Missouri all the way through portions of Kentucky. And then we'll see that snow really just, we're going to see, I think, I'm going to kind of, right in here, I think we're going to see an isolated jackpot. I think the snow is really going to accumulate because you'll see here that this cold front kind of just hangs around and doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of stays in the same general area, which means the snow bands will be over the same spot for multiple hours. They're saying this, some meteorologists are calling for the heaviest snow to be up here. That there could be two pockets. There could be one in central Wisconsin, and there's going to be another one potentially in portions of the northern half of the Great Lakes region and the southern Canadian areas. This system eventually gets out of here and then will bring a secondary round of severe weather across the deep south. And looking at the European model, damaging winds and a few tornadoes look to be a possibility because you have convection out ahead of the line. This system gets out of here, and that's good, and then it stays a pretty calm pattern, but we get this ridge building, and it just straight up pulls warm air, and you can see the ridging here. So we're going to really focus in. So the storm develops Sunday into Sunday afternoon, and then it develops a squall line. You can see it there kind of develop in portions of Missouri and Arkansas mostly. So I do believe we're going to take a look at the severe weather outlook for this right now before I do get into specific details. But I do believe this is going to be more of a damaging wind threat than it is going to be a tornado threat, just due to the fact that not all the ingredients are going to be there for the entire time for this tornado potential. But there's still the potential for EF2 plus tornadoes. So you'll see on the day 3 outlook here, we have an enhanced risk. This is for Sunday and Monday. We have a large enhanced risk of severe weather, which really bullseyes where the worst of it's going to be. So we're talking southern Illinois, southern Indiana, western portions of Kentucky, western Tennessee, northwestern Alabama, northwestern portions of Missouri, Mississippi, northern Louisiana, northeastern Texas, extreme southeastern portions of Oklahoma, and southeastern portions of Missouri. As we look at the probabilistic, this is where you'll notice there's one little spot here in the portions of the Ohio Valley that is highlighted in purple, which suggests they're going to be adding in a moderate risk of severe weather. And I do believe that moderate risk of severe weather is going to be for damaging winds, but maybe after taking a look at the models again, we will realize that there could be an uptick in a little bit more of the significant tornado parameter values being a little bit isolated higher in this region, which may mark the spot where the worst tornadoes are going to be. This is a level 1 level sig 1, so this is the intensity 1. But you can see that obviously the slight risk is this large area ahead of it, that's yellow. Then you have the red area, and then you have the pink slash purple area as well. But then you also have the gray, almost brown. And you can see this intensity goes out, and this has been a thing for a few days. Now we're going to get into the specific details for this. Unfortunately, the RFS, I don't think goes all well. I guess we'll just have to see. So during the later afternoon hours and evening hours and overnight hours, we're going to see this line develop probably around the borderline of Missouri and Oklahoma. We're going to see this line develop very quickly. Early Monday morning, this is going to be rolling through portions of Arkansas, Missouri, as well as even stretching as far south as Texas. This will eventually push through, and then this is the area of my concern. So I want to kind of zoom in one specific area where where that extra level has been added, other than the enhanced risk. So let's see. So you can see this the RRFS model is indicating what would be a QCLS tornado threat. This means embedded rotation within the line of thunderstorms, or I say it as rotation within the line of thunderstorms. And I want to look in the specific area where they're marking it if the significant tornado parameters are any higher than they could be. So we can take a look at the temperature. So this is going to be overnight, so they're not going to be overly high. Or maybe they will. I don't know. But you can see, but right in here, you're dealing with temperatures between 40 and 60 degrees. This is just barely, this may not even be enough to produce a tornado, but it really depends on the dew points. If you look at the dew points for this specific time, 1604Z, it's right in there. See? Sorry about that. I'll go forward one more. It's right in there, borderline. It's right in there. So if this line of thunderstorms is in this dew point area, the temperature combined with the dew point, and you take a look at, and we can take a look at the surface-based cape. It is there, but it's not very present. You can see it's kind of lower, but this is just because it's really early on Monday morning. But if you take a look at the wind shear, and you go around that time frame, 1604, we have a ripping jet stream, a ripping area of wind shear, enough that would probably tear a hurricane into. So the line is basically here. You're hovering in about a 70 to 80 knot region, which means it would be elevated to a moderate risk of severe weather. And then one more thing we'll look at is the significant tornado cover. Does it get elevated? And it does, around 4Z. You can see that kind of here. There's blue. There's isolated areas closer to 1. Do I think this is enough for moderate risk of severe weather? Not really. So I think it's going to be, I think the severe weather risk for that moderate is going to be purely driven by the amount of instability in the atmosphere, and purely driven by the wind shear that and the low-level jet stream. Because if you take a look at the low-level jet stream, I don't even know if I'm looking at the right one, but that's okay. Look at this jet stream, how it is just ripping. This jet stream is going fast. And this is the low-level jet. It is between 70 and 60 and 80 knots, which is easily 70 to 90 plus miles per hour. This is enough to be a concern, and I do believe they're going to be issuing the moderate risk for the damaging winds, because you have a low-level jet so intense. And you can see right there, 80 knots. So my prediction is this region here is going to be for damaging winds. There could also be large hail within this line of thunderstorms. So, and we saw some incredible hail from a few nights ago. Some records may have been broken. There was even a picture of an 8-inch sized hail. Insane stuff. But that is the kind of analyzation for that part. And there still will likely be at least a few tornadoes, but I don't think this is overly a significant tornado threat as I'm seeing it now. I think we're mostly dealing with a damaging wind threat. But there you could see some isolated tornadoes within the line of thunderstorms and hail as well, but damaging winds will be a primary concern. The damaging winds could be in excess of over 70 miles per hour. Monday into Tuesday, they have extended this enhanced risk of severe weather up through Pennsylvania, and then a large slight risk of severe weather that extends from southern New England all the way down to portions of the southeast. So we're going to take a look at this threat as well. Alright, so here we are. So basically, you can see the cluster of thunderstorms developing ahead of it. And then you have the squall line. So I think you're going to have the damaging winds and then the squall line, but I do think this actually could be an enhanced risk for potential tornadoes. You can see it's kind of more, this is more separation, which tells me that there could be, just because, this will likely be an enhanced risk for tornadoes. We're seeing levels between 1 and 2. That's combined with the Cape, which the Cape index is high enough, just barely for that region. But I do believe it'll be for damaging winds and a few tornadoes. And we can also take a look at the wind shear here. The wind shear is ripping, literally ripping. We have wind shear ahead of wind shear 40 to 50 knots, but in the main area, we're dealing with wind shear, just crazy stuff, 100 knots, very strong system. I do believe this enhanced risk of severe weather will be for tornadoes. I don't know if it's going to be hatched yet. I don't think that's a high enough thing to be hatched, but it's. I think they're going to issue at least a Sig 1, so the significant one first. Now that we've gone through that, we're going to take a look at the wind, the damaging wind risk and the heavy rain. So for the Northeast, so we're going to end up about Monday afternoon. We're going to start seeing some rounds of heavy rain getting pushed up from the south. You've got a warm front that's extending like this, and it's going to drag all this Gulf moisture straight out of the Atlantic Ocean and just pump it through. Multiple rounds of heavy rain showers, and this will be combined with gusty winds as well. Now, while this heavy rain is happening, if you look at um, the 850 millibar wind, you can see this thing is absolutely ripping. There's spots that are coming through that are between 50 and 70 knots, so 60 to 80 miles per hour pretty much. And then during the main event Tuesday morning, which will be the main event probably, this low level jet is going to scream, just get an immense amount of energy. And you can see it right here, that little pocket of over 80 knot winds. This is a low level jet stream. And combined with the heavy downpours that come through, you're going to see some of these wind gusts be pushed down to the surface. And I think the European model does an okay job with the wind gusts overall. So you're going to see some periods of wind gusts between 35 and 45 miles per hour, potentially even higher for a few hours. And then you're going to see the main line come through with that intense wind. And with some of the squall line heavy downpours, it could push some localized winds between 50 and 60 miles per hour, especially in down East Maine, down to the surface. Now, if we look at the GFS model, things are a tad different. Just a tad different, not by a whole bunch. The models are doing an overly pretty good job with this overall. You see, the one thing I'm noticing different with the GFS model already, with this particular one, is you actually get some mixed precipitation ahead of the basically, you can see little pockets where we can do a little meteorology here. We have a little tiny cold nose here. So the red line is the temperature, and the green line is the dew point. You can see here, just above 1 kilometer up in the sky, you have a nose here, and then it goes straight down from there. This indicates probably freezing rain. And what do you know? It is freezing rain. It is pink. So you're going to see some areas of heavy downpours come through, and in these heavy downpours, the gusty winds, the intense winds from above, probably between one knot and 5 knots, or 1 mile to 5 miles, potentially even 10 miles above the surface, is going to drag these damaging winds down to the surface. And they're going to be gusty, they're going to be strong, and then at times they could be damaging. That's just the intensity of the storm. And you also notice, while the storm is intensifying, once the storm is getting the squall and moving, you notice that the actual area of center of low pressure is dropping millibars. So you get the extra downpours and you get one last burst. So I do believe Monday into Tuesday is going to be kind of just a windy day in general with just frequent gusts over 40 to 50 miles per hour. I think the peak wind gusts are going to be early Tuesday morning. We'll have a shot at least 55 to 65 miles per hour in portions of down East Maine. This could extend as far north as Bangor, but for right now, down East Maine looks the most favorable for 55 to 65 miles per hour wind gusts. There could be a little corridor in western Maine where we can have isolated wind gusts locally higher than that, but that's if everything lines up perfectly. But you'll notice when these heavy downpours are coming through, you can see we're having multiple hours of 40, 45 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. And then finally you get the last push of energy that comes through, and you see these wind gusts approach 60 to 65 miles per hour. And along the coastline, they may approach 70 miles per hour. That's according to the GFS model. Now, here's something interesting I would like to show. Here's the energy coming. So you get a piece of energy this comes out of the Pacific Northwest. It kind of wraps around like that, like a bowling ball of energy, and then races, and then it strings out. This is the energy that is bringing the heavy rain, and this is also the energy that is bringing the winds as well. That pushes through, and you get that sharp blue color. So you can see this big bowling ball of energy just develop right over the Great Lakes region. That is your blizzard on the other half. And then it continues to move off to the north and east. Looking forward, once that system gets through there, you'll have, like I said, there'll be periods of 45 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts through the day on Monday, but then Monday night to Tuesday morning, there's going to be periods of probably 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, and there will be probably a peak later in the morning on Tuesday, maybe around 5 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the morning, or earlier, of your final peak wind gusts between 55 and 65 miles per hour with localized higher. I don't think we're going to see, I do think there's a potential here for at least scattered power outages. I wouldn't even rule out widespread. It just depends on how things come together. But looking at the low-level jet stream, you'll see here, the low-level jet comes through, and it cranks. It's a little more aggressive on the GFS model. It'll have a few rounds that come through Monday, where it, just depending on if you get like a quick burst of heavy rain, it could push these gustier winds down to the surface. And it's also going to be windy on the western half of this storm as well. And you're going to see it finally pushes one last burst of energy right up into Maine, and there it is right there. You get into the 80 knots. This is when things get worrying. This is when you can have some isolated wind gusts potentially over 55 to 65 miles per hour. Once you get above 50 miles per hour and closer to 60 miles per hour, you start dealing with more widespread power outages. I do think power outages are a threat. I think the European model is finally coming into agreement with the GFS model. It's been having a hard time, but the GFS model has been very consistent with wind gusts between 55 and 65 miles per hour for the peak wind gusts. And this is not very typical for a spring-like pattern. We don't typically see windstorms in spring, but little do you know, here we go. So that storm passes through. And then we'll take a look at the future. Not much happens. Maybe some few clipper systems, typical of winter, and then maybe a quiet pattern after that. And it doesn't look like that. And one thing I forgot to do, looking at the temperatures. The temperatures, there should be a big temperature swing behind this cold front that comes through, and we don't get super cold, but we get temperatures into the 30s all the way down into portions of the southeast that don't typically see it, but have seen it time and time again throughout this entire winter, so it's no surprise. But the areas that get the storm get very cold temperatures, probably, teens to 20s, and then probably in the northern areas of New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire, as well as northern Maine, will likely see temperatures approach 0 degrees. And I do think it'll pull at least one last shot, or at least try to, of brutally cold air. And then we kind of just warm up from there. And then on the 19th, just a full-blown heat wave. But if we look at the GFS model, we'll see what the GFS model thinks. So we get this cold front that comes through, temperatures drop drastically for just a little bit. Pretty similar. It's just a bit tad farther north, but you still get the general idea. 30s do get down into the southeast. As this moves on, you continue to see this warm air building, but the cold air just does not want to give up. This is a classic clash of seasons, which is prone to bring severe weather. And I guarantee you the GFS model has a very volatile pattern here, where just clipper after clipper, and eventually you'll see some systems that try to develop maybe around the 27th. This is looking a long ways away, over almost 2 weeks away, or maybe we get a little bit of a severe weather event. It will be a little bit more of a cold core setup since it's kind of closer to the cold air, but yeah. And then we can take a look at the Climate Prediction Center, and it 100% supports this. We're going to see the warm air building in the west while we have cooler temperatures across the northeast. But the precipitation is pretty typical of a La Nina into a neutral enso phase. We're going to start off March with warm temperatures, but at the same time, we're going to have above average precipitation chances for the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes region, the Central Plains, and areas that aren't marked on this map will still likely to see precipitation. And then, as we look at the hazards, you'll see here, we have, this is just brand new, for the March 21st through the 27th, so in about a week and a half, we have a moderate risk of hazardous temperatures. This would be warm, this would be hot temperatures across the southwest, which is pretty typical of the La Nina, so that's no surprise. But nothing else has been issued. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to never miss an upload. And without further ado, we will see you in the next one. Bye.